Hello, my name is Rob. I am the composer and sound designer on a wonderful little project called Ollie Oop. Let me show you really quick. Ollie Oop. It's this game. Ollie Oop. It's gorgeous. It's fun. It's cute. And I wanted to explain how I was doing the music for the cul-de-sac level, which is the one you're seeing right there, because it's really complicated. And I'm mostly making this for myself so I can remember what I did, but I think it's worth showing if anybody else needs to know. So first, I'm going to start off with my Logic scene here. So I wrote this in Logic, and I've got 5 different parts here. I've got the intro, which is a cutscene that comes from, it's like a, like a loop around the block just to show, like what the level's going to look like. And so I've got a musical cue that's going to go to that. Let me get rid of some of this. And then there is a backyard loop when the player is just going to sit there and just basically just like do whatever they want in a backyard, and then they can push a fence, and then it goes into this greater area. So the way I started was a mess, and now it's much cleaner. But so this is the intro, so it plays here, and then we've got this loop that goes here, and then when the player hits the fence to start transitioning the next area, this loop plays, or not loop, this one shot plays to then go to the cul-de-sac loop, which is right here. So then this music plays, and this basically doesn't stop unless you go underwater, because it's an adventure game, and then the underwater music is pretty much the same as the cul-de-sac loop, only it's, composed, using different patches. It's just like more subdued. And then like if Ollie ever goes up to an NPC character, this music plays, NPC music. And then if you ever pause the game, this pause music will play. Now, I'm not sure I'm completely done with the music yet, but I think I am good on the system that I've made here. So here's so that's what the Logic process looks like. And what I did is I took these sections and I soloed them. So like, like I would highlight this section and I'd solo that. And I might like make sure that these are muted. And so I'd highlight this whole section of audio, and then I'd bounce it. And then I would include the audio tail and normalize on. You can either not normalize it, or you can normalize it. It's not really that big of a deal either way. But what I'd do is that I'd export this, and then I would unsolo that, I'd turn these back on, and I would then export that. Logic does this really cool thing where whatever you highlighted, it will basically bounce that. So like I just turned the cycle on here, and then I can just bounce this area. So I don't even have to turn it on or off. I just have to like highlight that area. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but you just highlight the area that you want, and then bounce it, and then it won't even go any further than this and still do a trail off. It'll still bounce with the trail off, even though there's something here, which is really cool. I thought that was really cool. And then I did the same thing here, and then I did the same thing here, so there's 3 different audio files. Okay. Then I did the same thing with the cul-de-sac loop. I did, I bounced this one, and then I bounced this one, and I bounced these, and I bounced this. And you can go even further. I could go even further and like separate sections. Like maybe I take one and not have the drums in it. So like, You know, I could get rid of this and then just the music, and then maybe the drums, I can control them more in Fmod. So I forgot to mention that I am using Fmod. So now let's go to the Fmod project, because I just really wanted to show you how I was doing it in Logic, and how I was exporting stuff, because in a lot of videos that I see of people talking about this Fmod stuff, they don't really talk about how the creation process goes. And, you know, if anybody has any questions about this, they can go further. I used to have, before I move on, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. I'm just very excited that I figured this out. So before this was more organized, I used to have, you know, all the tracks on, or all my MIDI on, you know, if I was using this bass for other things, I would just have all the MIDI on there and it would just like be sequential. But then I was just running into so many problems of like losing track of my instruments, and then like not knowing what's on and off, and it got so confusing when I was bouncing stuff down. So I just made these subfolders, and you can do that by, you know, highlighting what you want, and then you know, right clicking, and then you can do create track stack, and you can do the summing stack or this folder stack, and I use the folding stack. So just wanted to say that that's how I was doing this, and it's so much easier to see and use. This is something that you can't really do in Pro Tools, and I was a long time user of Pro Tools. I mean, I'm still a user of Pro Tools, but mostly for just recording, and for composing. This Logic stuff is just amazing. Anyways, just some personal sort of stuff. Okay, so now the Ollie project. So as you can see, I've made two. This is my third version of this, and this is feeling really good. But my first version is completely different music. Had these had these markers in it to reference, so that other instruments, if you know, Ollie has a harmonica he can play, and so I was using these references to play back the harmonica on the right key, and it just got super confusing. And so I kind of abandoned that, and I think I still might do the harmonica thing, but I think I redid the music again, and then I had this more really complex. It works, but it made the programmer really confused, and doing it this way made it very difficult to understand on my front too. So basically the way this would work is that if I played this, you know, the parameter is different now, but basically what would happen, you know, you'd play this and then I would change it, and then it would go into this section, and then if I change the parameter again, it would then jump to, you know, this hidden no, it's not there. It would jump to this hidden this nested like transition. So then this transition would then go into the yard, and then it would play this yard music. Go away. So then the yard music would play. Oh, it's because the music is down. So it'd play the yard music, and then I had another parameter that would set it so that, you know, this would turn down, and then the NPC music would come up. And then there was a pause menu too, and it just got super confusing and really weird and just ugly to look at and hard to understand. So then me and the programmer were like, there's got to be an easier way, and there is an easier way, and that's this one. So how I did this, well, first of all, let me just show you it in action. So here's the intro. So you're seeing the whole area, and I'm sorry it's not connected to Unity. It's not quite implemented yet, but I know this will work. So you're seeing, you know, the whole situation, the whole looping around the area, and it's really beautiful, and it's showing you the whole, it's showing everything. Let me turn this project down a little bit. Yeah, that's probably better. Okay, so it's playing that, and then when it's finished, it should go right into the backyard. And then, you know, like if you press pause during this intro, or I mean forward, like if you skip it, you can go right into the backyard. So this will just loop until I say otherwise. Now there's, before I do that, let me talk about these. Let me talk about these parameters. So this parameter I've got it as a labeled parameter. It's called music changes, and then it's got an intro, backyard, yard, NPC, and pause. And that's reflected in these areas here. And these are nested referenced files. So here are the referenced files. This is where all the audio actually is. And then this main folder, or this main vent, is looking at those files that are being referenced. And so I didn't think, you doing this way, I didn't think that I could actually transition to different areas without having it like this crazy nutball way. But you can, and I'm doing all my transitions within the nested regions, or the nested events, I'm sorry. So let's go to this backyard, because this is really the only one that's going to transition, because remember, this is the backyard. So picture like you're in a backyard surrounded by a fence, and when you leave the fence to go into the greater area and keep exploring, I wanted it to change the music to then like transition into a, you know, more fitting music for adventuring out. So the way I did that was in this backyard area, I made this pretty simple to understand. Let me turn that down. So it's just going to keep looping forever until I turn the transition on, and then it would go to this next area. So that's going to play to go into the next section. Now, the really cool thing is that version, I'm going to show you what version I'm on here. So in Fmod 2.01, they added these parameter changes that you can set within projects so that it can actually change based on change your different like global parameters or whatever. So this music changes parameter is actually a global parameter. So that means that if it's being referenced in the other part, it can still change. If I'm changing it within this, it can also change globally, which is really cool, especially for this situation, because what I want this to do is I want this to play, but I want it to change right there so that it just goes right into the next section of music. So that's what happens here. And because this is a nested event, the transition parameter is referenced in the main here. So let's play this backyard. Oh, I gotta turn that back up. Sorry. So now if I want to transition, I just say on. It goes right to it. Then it'll go right to the yard. Really cool. Did not know it could do this. So now this is in the backyard. So now this will play, and it's based off of this event, which then also has underwater music, so that when this plays, this is gonna be too loud, I'm gonna bring this down. So we're gonna play this music, but like now Ollie can go underwater, so I just have this simple underwater event that just turns down the yard music and crossfades into the underwater music. So now on the timeline here, I can play this, and then I can press 1. Then we'll go into this underwater music. And then when I leave the water and go back, it'll just go right back exactly where it was in place so that it sounds seamless. Going back to the water. Pretty cool, huh? So that's the same thing you can do here. Oops, keep turning it down. You can do that same thing here. And I'm using seek speed to just give it more of that fading feel. Let's go back. So now we're in the yard. We'll never hear this music again because I only want the player to hear the intro and then the backyard music into that intro or into that transition only once, only that first time, because I don't really need them to hear anymore. Even if they go back to the backyard, I don't want it to go back to that because it's more of just, you know, suspended, like, I don't know, suspended emotion. Just, it's giving the player something new and something different. They're feeling like they're exploring, they're getting new music. It's just good feel. So now we're in the yard, and then we've got some pretty basic stuff now. So like when you talk to an NPC, it'll then transition to this music. And then, you know, like, okay, I'm done talking to the NPC, now I'm going to go back to the yard music. And then, like, let's say I pause, we'll go to the pause music, and then transition back. Now, one thing that I have not figured out yet, and maybe, you know, I will figure this out soon, is keeping these files going when they're playing. So, like, I don't have to keep hearing the beginning of that loop every time I go from NPC to yard or pause to yard. I probably can do an asymmetric, you know, I can probably make these asymmetric in yard by doing the async, but I'm not sure if that's gonna solve the problem. It could, but that's not what this video is for. It's mostly just to explain how the event is made and how these changes are happening. And I think it's really, really effective. So, yeah, if you have any questions about how to do these nested events, or, you know, how to export in Logic, or just anything Fmod related, or, you know, version 2.0 that, you know, you need help with or whatever, I've definitely been doing a lot of stuff in this version. And so this was a game changer, the set parameter in the referenced folder, which then hit this global music changes, and then it was able to go into the next thing. And then it makes this easier for the programmer, because then the programmer can just take these words, these titles, and just plop them in. And then, you know, like when you're talking to an NPC, the NPC music happens. When you're just in the yard music. So this is just like easy to go, rather than, you know, like having all these crazy changes and different parameters and stuff. So now we only have 3 parameters instead of, you know, I only had 1 here, but it was so crazy because before, you know, like it was doing like, man, where was it? Yeah, stuff like this, where it was just like, it'd have to turn up and turn down at certain parts. But then the problem is that sometimes if you try to do seek speed, well, this isn't actually lining up correctly because I changed the parameter from what is it called? Let's edit this. Yeah, I changed it from this discrete or continuous, I mean, and then I changed it to labeled, so it's not going to look right now. But anyway, the way it was working before was just crazy. So anyway, hope this was helpful. If it's not helpful for you, it's helpful for me, so I can reference it. Okay, thanks. Bye.